Namaskar and good afternoon, our distinguished dignitaries, eminent panelists, delegates, policymakers, CEOs, agri professionals, experts, officials, progressive farmers, rural institutions, key stakeholders, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to the Polo Tire's second Farm Power Awards 2020, which is being presented by Agriculture Today Group. India's leading magazine, Agriculture Today, has been a vanguard in disseminating information, influencing policies, creating business networks, and recognizing the achievers. And Agriculture Today Group is creating seminarial platforms, roundtable sessions, and panel discussions for excellence and wisdom to converge and converse. Apart from the Agriculture Today monthly magazine, the group delivers daily through Agri News Network and Agri News Service with topical updates and news bulletins. With a comprehensive and pragmatic approach, Agriculture Today Group tirelessly felicitates the role models of this colossal sector at the Agriculture Leadership Awards every year. Agriculture Today Group is delighted to announce the second edition of Apollo Farm Power Awards 2020 to recognize the excellence in the farm power and the agriculture mechanization. These awards shall be conferred to celebrate efforts that have made significant contributions in the sector and positively impacted lives of millions of farmers. Today's event on a virtual platform is an amalgamation of a panel discussion on policy interventions, CEOs' dialogues on business opportunities, followed by the award presentation ceremony. We begin with a small audio-video presentation of Agriculture Today Group.
Technological improvements in Indian agriculture since the mid-60s have enabled a substantial increase in food grains production. Yet, farm mechanization is at various stages of adoption in India. Agriculture mechanization is crucial for modernization and commercialization of agriculture as it improves productivity and timeliness of agriculture operations, aids in value addition, brings down the cost of cultivation and enables climate change adaptation. Agricultural mechanization in India is driven by the need for enhancing agriculture productivity and availability of food grains, increasing agriculture exports, mitigating labor shortage, and facilitating judicious use of scarce natural resources and farm inputs. The growth of farm mechanization sector is impeded by a few crucial characteristics of Indian agriculture, such as fragmentation of land holdings, a large presence of small and marginal farmers, unaffordability of farm technology, and practicing of subsistence agriculture. By 2022, the size of the farm equipment market is expected to reach 9 lakh crore. This presents an opportunity to establish business models that can drive technological advances and catalyze entrepreneurial innovation in the farm machinery sector in India. There is a need for greater focus on developing need-based and regionally differentiated machinery in response to the specific requirements of Indian agriculture. The promotion and modernization of custom hiring models and agriculture machinery banks are steps in the right direction. In this journey of transformation, millions of farmers and thousands of policymakers, research and development institutions, startups, small and large companies have played seminal roles. They need to be admired and recognized. Their success stories need to be discussed at the national level for replication. Agriculture Today Group, as the media and policy catalyst, has always been on the forefront in sharing information, discussing contemporary issues, influencing policies, creating business networks, and recognizing excellence. The institution of Apollo Farm Power Awards was a small step in this direction to facilitate innovation and meaningful contribution of agriculture mechanization sector in India. Today, these awards shall be conferred to celebrate 18 such efforts that have made significant contributions in the sector and positively impacted lives of millions of farmers. We had received more than 200 nominations and the winners have been selected by a 15-member awards jury comprising of the most eminent names in this sector. We welcome you all to the second Apollo Farm Power Awards 2020.
Ladies and gentlemen, the second video was from Apollo Tyres. Apollo Tyres Limited came into inception in the year 1972 and has since been a trusted name in the business of manufacture and the sale of tires. With their corporate headquarters in Gurgaon, India, they cater to over 100 countries across the globe. And I now have the privilege in inviting Ms. Mamta Jain, editor and CEO, Agriculture Today Group, for the introductory note. Over to you, Mamta.
Thank you, Sapna. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. To begin with, I would like to introduce our jury members who have most generously extended support with their wisdom and knowledge. These are some of the most eminent names of agriculture mechanization world, and their mere presence here adds to the glory of these awards. So to begin, I would like to introduce Mr. T.R. Keswan, who is the president of TMA and also heading corporate affairs at TEFE. Then we have Dr. Gajendra Singh. As they say, naam hi kafi hai. We don't need any introduction for Mr. Gajendra Singh. Then we have Dr. Pitam Chandra, former director, Central Institute of Agriculture Engineering and former ADG Engineering ICAR. Dr. Alughu Sundaram, who is the current Deputy Director General Engineering at ICAR. We have Dr. R.C. Agarwal, Deputy Director General Education at ICAR. Then we have Dr. Surendra Singh, who is the Technical Advisor, Agriculture Machinery Manufacturers Association. Dr. Neelam Patel, she has recently joined as Senior Advisor, Agriculture at Niti Aayog. Dr. Indramani, who is the President of Indian Society of Agriculture Engineers. Dr. C.R. Mehta, Director, Central Institute of Agriculture Engineering, Bhopal. Dr. R.K. Singh, Director, Central Institute of Post-Harvest Engineering and Technology, Ludhiana. Mr. Puneet Singh Thind, Director, Vegetable Growers Association. And Mr. Fareed Ahmed, Head Marketing OHT at Apollo Tyres. I would like to extend a very special thank you, dear Fareed ji, and to Apollo Tyres for unconditionally supporting us and encouraging us into planning this awards event on this virtual platform. And obviously, I cannot let go of this opportunity to mention that Mr. Satish Sharma, sir, your presence here today is most encouraging and we look forward to a very enriching and meaningful experience today. Moving on, I feel delighted in introducing my team who have tirelessly worked round the clock because coordination of this virtual event demanded much more working hours and energy since all of us are working from home due to the pandemic. Dr. M.J. Khan, Chairman of the group. Sir, I need to extend my heartfelt gratitude to you for having your trust and confidence in us and giving us the full liberty to work on our editions and at this event. Anilji, he is heading IT and admin. Ankit, his seamless coordination between all agencies involved. Arisha is handling the entire backend support with communications, videos, citations. I'm sure she has coordinated with all of you. Abhishek and Abdulji are graphics masters, and Rajni ma'am. She is the executive editor of the group, and I have to say that she is our spinal cord because all of us are completely lost without her. So we just don't know what to do without her. So she is the backbone of Agriculture Today team. And now, friends, may I please have the proud privilege of unveiling the cover of the October edition of Agriculture Today, which is a farm mechanization special. We feel very honored that we get to feature the very distinguished, the very honorable LD Mittal sir from Sonalika Group. He's the founder and chairman of Sonalika Group, and he has been a huge support system to Agriculture Today since ever. We have taken this liberty to feature him on the cover of October edition. Thank you, sir. We are very blessed. Ladies and gentlemen, time now to invite our eminent panelists for the CEO's dialogue on opportunities, trends, challenges in agriculture mechanization. Chairing and moderating the session would be Mr. T.R. Keswan, President TMA. Joining him is Mr. Satish Sharma, President Apollo Tyres, Mr. Rohtash Mal, Chairman and MD EM3 Services, Mr. G.S. Grewal, Senior Vice President Sales and Marketing, Kubota, Mr. Tanul Singhal, Group Head Corporate Affairs and Institutional Prospecting, Escorts Limited. Then we have Mr. Satish Movalia. I think, has he joined in? Okay.
Yes, I already.
Okay, great. Mr. Satish Movalia, Director Captain Tractors. We have Mr. Bimal Kumar, Director Sales and Marketing, CNH Industrial or New Holland Agriculture, as we all know. Mr. Mohit Singh, Head Product Planning and Strategy, Honda India Power Limited. And Mr. Sumit Jalan, Business Head Sales and Marketing, Shrachi Agrimech. Over to you, Keswan sir.
Thanks a lot, Mamta. I hope all of you can hear me.
Yes, sir, we
Mamta,
can.
just to get a clarification, how much time we have for this? 1 hour?
So we have an hour's time. Yes, sir.
Good, thanks.
Yeah, if we can wind up by 3:40, we would be fine.
Great. So, because the reason I asked you is got almost 7 people here, so at least I like to have 2 rounds, 5 minutes each to everybody. So that gives a chance for somebody else to reply to somebody else's thought process and points. So once again,
that's right, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome all of you for this particular panel discussion on opportunities, trends, and I think it's a great thing as far as COVID is concerned. I think COVID has been a big disrupting force in our lives, not only for India, but across the whole world. So naturally, this is going to open up a lot of opportunities, lot of different ways of working, different trends in the way we do business. So who else can I ask, but not this group, to give us some thoughts. And before I invite each speaker, I'm going to give a little bit the background about the speaker. So let me start with Satish, being an Apollo person and also one who will be tracking almost all the tractors with their tires. I think he's the right man to start it because he's a common factor as far as most of the tractors are concerned. Mr. Satish Sharma, he has completed almost 2 decades at Apollo Tyres and he has held a lot of important portfolios, including the Chief of Marketing Officer and the Chief of Indian Operations. So let me ask Mr. Satish a question, who is the currently President Asia Pacific, Middle East and Africa for Apollo. Mr. Satish Sharma, how do you find that the current COVID situation and the way the agriculture is working has brought different thought process in your way of working? What are the changes you notice? Is it for the good, for the bad, and what do you think is going to happen? I'm going to give you 5 minutes, Satish. I'm really going to cut it a little fine. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Keswan. Thank you for having me here. I think as far as COVID is concerned, every economy is seeing a V-shaped recovery. Ours is also. We've just ended the month of September. As far as tractors are concerned, I think it's an all-time high, as you already know. Particularly with respect to COVID, I would say, all the trends which were witnessed in the past or which had started pre-COVID, they only got accelerated during the COVID period, particularly to do with the digitalization, future of work, the way we organize ourselves. The fact that, almost every organization had rural in the center of gravity of their marketing strategies. But I think this particular pandemic has brought the rural market center stage. And because the rural economy has really been leading India literally out of trouble, if one can say that. And that economy has been the sort of steering it from the front. And now, in a phase lag, the urban economy is catching up. So during this period of time, I would think that it's also taught companies how to reimagine their strategies, how to look at almost everything differently. The entire cost structures of companies which were almost unthinkable have been reimagined. The go-to-market has been reimagined. The way of working has been reimagined. And now we are at a stage where when we get out of this pandemic, as in when we get out of it, we have to then discuss, what is the stickiness of the trends that we have seen during this period of time. Do we sort of get back to the old normal, or where does a new normal settle? And I would think that there are certain changes which are going to be very much there to stay. And that would enable organizations to, again, re-engineer their thinking process. Also, I would say technology has been center stage. As you know, we are doing this virtual summit. And the confidence on technology is going to drive the future. So let me put a pause at this stage. I mean, these are my thoughts to start with.
Thanks a lot, Satish. I think you have been very, very brief and to the point. I think I'm extremely happy about it. See, you really touched upon two things, which I think I'm going to use it to little bit of a kindle interest in the next speaker. One is the digitalization and go to the market. And so rural as a center. So let me request Mr. Rohtash Mal, who has been one of the very old friends of mine, who has been many of you know in the tractor industry as the CEO of the Escorts, but you didn't. I think many of us probably may not know that he also has a technology running in his veins because he was the CEO of Airtel, and also he had a lot of farming running in his range because he also CEO of the Field Fresh. And then he decided that he will combine both and start an EM3. And he said, I'm going to focus on rural. So Mr. Rohtash Mal, I'll be extremely happy to hear how are the changes of COVID, and like Mr. Satish said, how do you find digitalization and the go-to-market strategies and your work with rural changing for the better because of the COVID? And do you think it will stay?
Thank you, Kesavan, for your kind words. And before I answer your question, I'm going to add a personal note of delight at seeing the cover of the magazine with LD Mittal on the cover. Two reasons. The first is I took over from Mittal Saab as the president TMA a long time ago. I think that was 2009. I had the privilege of therefore interacting with Mittal Saab at his office, at TMA, etc. And my salutations to Mittal Saab. If you're listening to me, I remember you deeply and fondly. They were great, energizing times that we spent together. And I do wish we would connect again. It's been a long, long time. I will reach out to you, sir. I have the greatest regard for where you have taken Sonalika in the years. It's a powerhouse. And I could see the signs when I was at Escorts. I could see the signs, not merely signs. I could see strong signs. So thank you, Agriculture Today, for putting this on. And as a precursor to your question, Keswan Saab, allow me to take a minute only to set the backdrop. I think the unsung hero of the agri evolution, I hesitate to call it a revolution. The unsung hero is agri mechanization. The farmer has been at the center, a lot of technology has been center, but the ag-mech industry has really been the unsung hero, and it's time that it found its rightful place in the center of what is the future of Indian agriculture. Believe you me, a $360 billion output is exactly 1/3 of what the potential of this sector is, which is close to over a trillion. And I would have the numbers to prove it. This is probably the wrong forum to talk about it. But what a journey. AgMech needs to be seen not as a replacement for labor, but as a supplement to labor to raise productivity. Because here is where science meets sweat. And clearly, that's what's going to take it further. There was a mention of custom hiring centers. I urge the agriculture community to look at this differently. It was a non-starter to begin with. It will remain a non-starter until we change the lens of how we look at custom hiring centers. Believe you me, being in the business for 6 years now, post my retirement from Escorts, I have never hired out a single machine to a farmer. In fact, our mandate is please sit in the corner of the field. Just as you don't hire you hail a taxi and you get a service, but you can't drive it, you can't ride it, you can sit in the back. So we don't hire out equipment, we deliver services. So, and to come to COVID. As it is, I think the circular economy is here. The sharing asset economy is on us. If we don't pay heed to it, something that our great grandfathers taught us, we will be sorry. We missed the opportunity. After all, the sharing economy of Uber started with the Ghoda Gadi, where 4 people got into a Tonga. So there's nothing so dramatically different. We put technology to work in a different manner. To your point on COVID, I'm coming finally to it. I think what has happened, if I might add to the remarks of my colleague from Apollo, is that it has accelerated a process. It has got the world to see that there are other ways for value creation than merely the traditional ways. Speaking on my own behalf, I think the market of services from February, if I take a trend line through October to March and another trend line July to September, we have seen a doubling of revenue, doubling of number of hours. And to look at life differently after COVID, we've seen a halving of costs. Effectively, our biggest costs to deliver services are human costs. And there is a halving cost for twice the revenue. So revenue to cost ratios become extremely favorable. Talking of COVID again, the world is recognizing that things are actually much worse than they were in January, February, March. If you look at every statistic, it's pointing in the other direction. So therefore, any acceleration that we might make to digitalize or digitize our services, anything that we might do to deliver value to the farmer, I think the crying need of the hour is technology to be able to do that. I'm closing my opening points once again with my deepest respect and salutations to the venerable gentleman who adorns the cover of this month's magazine. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Rohtash. And I think, yes, your point of Mr. Mittal is noted, and I think it is something which we have to accept and appreciate. And somebody who really started small and created an empire for himself. So I think we all follow you in telling him that he has done a fantastic job as far as India is concerned, especially in the world's eyes. Now, 2 points. I mean, we have been talking about sharing economy. That's what Rohtash pointed out. He also talked about the unsung hero is actually the agricultural mechanization. I tend to agree with you, Rohtash, because that is something people don't really realize many a times. And I loved your word, science meets sweat. I think I'm going to use it. I hope you're not copyrighted it.
I'll send you
coming back to it. You know, there is one thing I always talked about is that lend to rent rather than only give you capex support. Lend to rent will make a huge difference for the small farmers. And when I talk about small farmers, the person I genuinely remember is Mr. Kailash, who is sitting here, Satish Malavia, who is sitting here. Sorry, Cecil, I always tend to remember your brother a little more, and you're probably looking like your brother off late. So that's the problem. So Satish, you have been one of the pioneers in the small tractors. And then you really started small tractors. You really introduced the small end of mechanization needed. You know, we heard Mr. Satish, we heard about Mr. Rohtash also. I want to understand from the second Satish here. Satish, how do you find these changes helping you or hindering you? And how do you find rural reacting to it? Because you're very close to a small farmer. So I love to hear from you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for giving opportunity on this platform. सर मैं हिंदी में बात करूंगा आपसे. Is it okay?
मातृभाषा है.
Right, sir. एक्चुअली जैसे आपने बताया कि स्मॉल एंड मार्जिनल फार्मर, और अभी जो आफ्टर कोविड एक सर्वे किया हुआ है गवर्नमेंट ने, तो उसमें देखा जाए तो काफी जो प्रॉब्लम्स है वो स्मॉल एंड मार्जिनल फार्मर्स है उसको है. तो उसको लेके अभी जो सिचुएशन आई है एग्रीकल्चर इंडस्ट्री में, तो जो स्मॉल एंड मार्जिनल फार्मर है उसको कोविड के कारण से काफी डिफिकल्टीज हुई है, क्योंकि उसको टाइम पे मशीनरी नहीं मिला. तो ओ लेवल पे अभी बात की जाए तो जो स्मॉल एंड मार्जिनल फार्मर है उसका अभी ये सोच बन गया है कि भले छोटा हो लेकिन हमारा खुद का कुछ होना चाहिए मशीनरी. तो आज की डेट पे वो कुछ डिपेंड नहीं रहना चाहते हैं, और वो ये सोचते हैं कि हमारा काम जो है एग्रीकल्चर का वो पूरा अभी हम खुद से ही करें, और मैकेनाइजेशन जो है उसमें हम खुद ही हमारा काम कर ले. तो वो ट्रेंड देखते हुए अभी ऐसा लग रहा है कि सभी फार्मर्स जो जिसके पास कोई मशीनरी नहीं है वो आज की डेट पे खुद का मशीनरी लेके मिनी ट्रैक्टर हो या बड़ा ट्रैक्टर हो या छोटे इम्प्लीमेंट्स हो, तो उसका जो रिक्वायरमेंट है वो हिसाब से वो परचेस करके अभी वो एक ट्रेंड फार्मरों में आना शुरू हो गया. तो आफ्टर कोविड ऐसा लग रहा है कि सब लोग अपना डिपेंडेंसी निकाल के खुद के काम के लिए जो भी उसको काम करना है, तो उसका एक मशीनरी उसको लेना है, जैसे मिनी ट्रैक्टर हो गया, उसके चलते हुए इम्प्लीमेंट्स हो गया. तो वो सब का काफी बदलाव आया है, और लोग अभी यही चाह रहे हैं कि हमारा खुद का ट्रैक्टर या खुद का मशीनरी कुछ होना चाहिए. तो ये चेंज अभी आफ्टर कोविड स्मॉल फार्मर्स में आया है पर्टिकुलर. थैंक यू.
Thanks a lot, Satish. A very interesting observation. I think probably when you really looked at the bigger people, you would not have realized it. You're actually saying that when there is a need and things became so difficult, farmers felt that owning even a small piece of machinery makes a lot of sense, because ये टाइम में मिलेगा क्या नहीं मुझे मालूम नहीं है. So मेरे पास खुद का पास है तो मैं यूज कर सकता हूँ. I think that's the concept you're bringing in. So COVID is actually opening out ownership, which is interesting. And just to add one point, Satish, Another thing we have noticed is one of the reasons why the rural people are probably purchasing more and more. I think Satish also was mentioned it earlier, is also because their avenues of spending is reduced. So they wanted to, now they have the excess money in their pocket. They said, let me use it for purchasing something I've been wishing for. And honestly, tractor, you need to only produce some, what, one tenth of the value, so that the rest you can still get it as a loan. So that being so, it's interesting. You brought in a new thought. Now I'm going to go slightly different. I'm going to ask Sumit Jalal, because I know he's also been working in the small areas. So I wanted to talk to Sumit and said, you heard Kailash, sorry, Satish. I always going to make this mistake. Satish Malavia, captain. You also heard the other two. Sumit, you have developed a lot of proficiency in this area, and you have also been working on supply chain in the past, but you are really getting into small equipments now. Satish, Sumit, what is your take on what Satish has said, and is there anything you like to add so that we have a better knowledge of how the farmers are reacting to the current situation? Sumit, please.
Right. Thank you, Kesavan sir, for this. And it's a great pleasure for me and an honor for me as a youngster to be a part of this eminent panel. And to answer to your question, sir, I agree with Satish sir in the sense that we have been primarily dealing with power weeders for, let's say, last 7 to 8 years. That time, power weeders were just introduced in the country. And probably Shachi Agrimech was one of the earliest company to introduce this segment into India. And that time we faced a lot of resistance in increasing the adoption of this machinery, primarily because India had seen tractor as the prime tool for cultivation, and tillers were also, obviously it's gained popularity. But yes, so we thought that power weeder is one thing which is going to be extremely useful for the small and marginal segment. I have heard you speaking, sir, in so many business seminars and panel discussions that if we can help the small and marginal farmers to increase the adoption of machinery, it will go a long way to improving the farm power availability in our country. So yes, that has happened over the past efforts of our company and the industry as a whole. And with respect to this COVID, specifically speaking, sir, obviously, the farmer community has emerged as the hero of this COVID. They are the, as we say, Jawan and Kisan. Both are the most two respected community in our country. They have shown that how to be strong and how to take the country out of the trouble every time. So that is there. And yes, during the COVID, another thing which has impacted our way of working is the agriculture technology, which we call as mechanization 2.0, like the integration of technology with farm mechanization, integrating sensors, big data, artificial intelligence. So since the interaction with our farmer community has been limited, we have thought that we have to create a USP or a competitive advantage for the small and marginal farmer segment. That will happen through integration of agri-technology with all these upcoming things like sensors and big data. So that is one thing which we are working with, and this all is directed towards giving a state-specific, crop-specific solution to our small and marginal farmer segment, and to see how through technology only we can help them communicate these benefits and to utilize our manpower and other resources towards that direction, rather than only visiting the dealers or visiting the doing traditional field activities. So that is how we have seen things changing during COVID time. Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Sumit. Just one correction. Being young is not a reason for exclusion. I think in our world, you see that youngsters have done much, much more, and every generation you see youngsters doing more than what the earlier generation has done. So that credit has to be given to the youngsters. So welcome to the group and be happy. The other question, then I'm going to move over to, again, I'm going to keep all the small ones together. Then I'll go to the big people, or three of them are waiting. So the small things, I think I'm really going to Mr. Mohit Kumar. on the Honda CL. You see, there is this other segment where farmers have been using quite a bit your products. Now, I have heard two views, one from Captain and other from Shachi. Now, I'm going to look at Honda CL. How do you find the world changing, especially the farmers changing? Where do you find there is more pull, or do you find that it is helping you? You think there's a change in the way the farmers are looking at it? In fact, the interesting word used was mechanization. You need to, the small and marginal farmers need to adopt more and more mechanization to make their life a little more simpler. Now, two people have added value. Now, I'm going to ask you this question. How do you find this, sir?
Thank you, and very good afternoon to everyone. And thank you so much, President San, for the opportunity, sir. And to answer the question, sir, since the pandemic broke out, we have been studying the market and watching it very closely, especially with all reverse migration happening back to the villages. And there were some thoughts that, it will basically lead to a lot of availability of, free hands to work in the farms. So maybe it is going to impact adversely to the farm mechanization. But on the contrary, with the first half results just in, we found ourselves to be actually grappling with to meet the demand that has come. And as was pointed out, except for agriculture, all the other indices have been actually looking southwards. And what we have seen is that in the post-COVID world, this basically has helped in a way that people are looking for efficient technologies that can do their work. And we know that when we talk about agriculture, which is a time-bound activity, so the inputs are required at a very timely manner and efficient utilization of resources. That in that sense, the demand for small machinery like a portable water pump within monsoon being good but being erratic in terms of distribution. And then we talk about power weeders, small power weeders like a 2 HP or a 5 HP. We're talking catering to a small and marginal farmer with land holdings getting smaller. The demand has only become more stronger. But with that, sir, one clear need that is coming out is that these small and marginal farmers, they are looking for finance for such kind of small machinery. And, when we talk to our dealerships across the country, of course, the demand for hiring, as Rohtas-san pointed out, is not only for the implement, but as a total package where people want to come and do the job, which is a very popular thing in Kerala, which faces a perennial manpower shortage. So we have a lot of labor or farm labor from UP and Bihar that does a lot of de-weeding activity in those areas. So such demand has gone up where people are looking for a total package in terms of an efficient machine with a trained manpower who can come and do the job in the minimum possible time. But as was also pointed out by Satish San, of people looking for having ownership so that they can control their operations and make a proper schedule of their farm activities. There has been a very strong demand over the years, which has only got stronger for financial institutions who can finance such small machinery. Now we know that, of course, if somebody wants to buy a tractor, there is a loan and a finance facility available. But when it comes to a small machinery with a ticket size of about 25,000 rupees, they'll have to buy that particular machinery from their own resources. So two things, sir. The demand has only gone stronger, which everybody agrees with. And secondly, the ownership, people are looking for finance options if they can be made available easily.
Thank you, Mr. Mohit. I think you brought in a very, very important aspect and a factor that financing for the small ticket items in agriculture. So this is the question we also been going through quite a bit that see, today you can go and buy a TV or a refrigerator or anything, and you're able to get a finance on the spot in the store. maybe a little higher interest rates.
Right.
Okay, but I don't see this happening for small equipments in the agricultural area, whatever the reasons may be. And I always believed, I genuinely believe even today, that a true farmer, underline that, a genuine farmer never like to,
Default.
default on any of his payment. The people who default is a different category, so I don't want to get into that. So
Correct.
this being so, I think you opened a very, very important thought process, the question, what is that the financial sector has to do? Unfortunately, I don't have a finance person here who can actually answer that question, to ensure that the small ticket items are given that kind of a finance support locally. Good thought. I think we need to come back on this part once again. Now I am going to go to a Fauji who calls himself that I am a Fauji, Mr. Tanul Singhal, who has been with Escorts. He says, I'm a retired Fauji, but I'm not a retired Earth Fauji. So he's still strong and going strong. So he's looking after the strategic corporation affairs and institutional prospecting. I know it's a slightly different topic. You will be having a little more bird's eye view of what's happening, being in a corporate sector, strategic corporate area. Do you think the change, what has changed? We all know the tractor numbers have gone up, and there has been a lot of pull what has been happening. And even I think this month, if my judgment goes, I think the numbers can be anything between 30 to 40% more than what is last year. We are all waiting for numbers. Last month it was 70%. So I'm not going to talk to you on tractor numbers. I'm going to ask you a different question. Do you think what is happening in the rural is going to continue? Is it going to be steadily? Can I say this year I'm going to have a 25% growth? Or do you think that these are all pent-up demands you see coming up and things will go back to a normal situation or below normal as the pent-up demand goes in? What does your corporate affairs and corporate thinking leads in this direction? What do you think, sir? Can't hear you. You're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Keshwan. There's definitely no going back. There would be a way forward only about this. After the rural sectoral balancing, powered by the funding from the NABARD, it has been made, the government has made it very clear. Now their eyes are towards the rural sector and how to strengthen it up so that even if there is some migration that has happened, that remains there. And the urban sector doesn't get overloaded or overwhelmed with the load that comes with it. So that is going to remain. That is one. Second, I would like to reiterate on the fact what our own veteran of Escorts stated, Mr. Rohtash Mal, on the unsung hero of AgMech. That is very true because we all experienced how difficult it was to reach out to our customers during this lockdown period, how difficult it was for our customers and our clients to come back to us and asking for the farm equipment and farm machinery, get it supplied to them. The production was not there, and how difficult it was to actually convince through the efforts of TMA and of course the individual efforts also, how we have convinced the influencers and the stakeholders to exempt that mechanization part of farm equipment and machinery, exempted from the included into the essential goods and services. So it's the time, and we have experienced the same problem during the GST time, when the spare parts were categorized into the luxury segment. That was at 28%, and that was also a very ironical part of it, where we are talking about welfare of the farmers, spare parts being pitched at 28%. So it's the time I think we have to make a concerted effort. I'm sure a lot of work has already undergone through TMA, but we have to make another concentrated effort wherein the tractor needs to be dealing with the luxurious segment of the automotive sector. So tractors or the farm equipment or machinery needs to be looked from a different point of view. So it becomes when the food and the farming is an essential service. So the wherewithal that provides that thing needs to be also covered under the same umbrella. So that was my viewpoint on this part.
Thank you, Mr. Tanil. Thanks a lot for. Yes, I know that TMA did a lot of work with respect to getting the clearance that is all essential, so the entire system has to work. It's true, and I think we had some reasonably good amount of success thanks to all the members participating and supporting it. See, there is a question of farm equipment being treated differently from everything else, not charging. Today, it's almost at 12% on farm equipment. We all went to a 12%. Some of you know the story because the reason has been that there is something called a revenue neutral rate, which was something like 13.6%. So any further reduction, I think I'm getting a lot of feedback. So any reduction, actually, our cost goes up, and then finally we end up passing it back. We had in the past told the government that we can follow the methodology used in Australia and Canada, wherein they also know that farmer produce it at 0 VAT, and they are not able to set off the VAT on the equipments and other things purchased, but they actually refund the VAT. So the farmers in Australia and Canada, if they pay 12% VAT as a GST or 15% VAT, whatever it is returned back to them. They can avail a credit. So in India, has to go differently for the farm equipment. This may be the way. I mean, I'm not getting into the policy, but that's the only way I think we can, because otherwise you have an inverted tax rate problem. So coming to this, I heard Tanil and his point of view. Now I'm going to go to the two large people, the CNH and the Kubota. Both of them had extremely strong companies behind them internationally. CNH has been there for quite a bit of time. Kubota has been a comparatively late entry, but they really brought a big change. So let me go with CNH. I'm going to catch hold of Kubota last because I know Grewal would love to speak. So I'm going to go back to him last. So Vimal, you have heard everybody. You have been the one player who have been playing in the large HP segment. So you have small HP, but you have been playing by and large in the large HP segment. And in the current situation, is your experience similar to what everybody is saying? Or do you find there anything changed? Do you think that digitalization and marketing through completely digital means has helped you? And does it impact your top line and the bottom line? Vimal.
Yeah, thank you, sir, and good afternoon, everybody. I think, there are very interesting views and they're all relevant. Every experience is relevant. I have some takes on the tractor industry or the agri industry. I think it is not COVID that has suddenly created agri boom. This is my personal view. Probably it is because of 2 good monsoons that the agriculture crops were good. Because, that is the key driver, because COVID has not brought in more money to the farmers. They have grown better crops and they could harvest it and sell it. So maybe the efficiency in harvesting or purchases was there. But fundamentally, it was the crop production, and that was more led by monsoon. Nothing else changed. So this is one, that monsoon continues to drive demand. And that would continue to be in near future because we are a lot dependent on monsoon. This is one. Secondly, yes, what COVID did is that how to reach out to the farmers when there is demand. There a lot of experiments happened for force because there was no other choice. So we went into digital or telephone or whatever, but it has been a very good learning. All these tools that we are using today were available last year as well, but we never experimented because the life was easy and we could do a physical event. But now it has forced, and probably next year as well, Apollo would do it, this Farm Power, the same way because it's quite cost effective. So if you look at the cost effective things, digital is surely cost effective, but if you have to do something in the farm, there has to be a physical action. Somebody has to really, sweat out. So you digitally cannot till your land, or you can digitally not shift your crops or process it. So the physical piece of the work, be it agri or production, whatever, will continue. And the I would not give a lot of credit to of COVID to the farm growth. It is monsoon for me. And even if you look at today, we have just come back to where we were. So there is a normal demand, there is a need of tractors or the farm machinery. And if you look at your, you know, year to year sort of a thing, I would say it's not too high a growth. And we are feeling that there is too much of demand because the supply chain was interrupted, and now we are trying to catch up. But I don't expect next year to be a boom of 25-30% or so. This is my view, because the demand drivers won't change so drastically. Of course, rural economy will change because of many other allied things. You know, it's not just the crops, it's the dairy and the allied things, the fisheries and so many other things that are going to drive rural economy. But it does not mean that it is farm mechanization. And while many people would own their machines, as we heard, because they want to be Atmanirbhar type, but I think it's still the custom hiring would grow. The challenge to custom hiring is easy access to custom hiring machines and lot of availability. So if you look at even the Uber or whatever, they were very popular in the big cities where there is density and availability and usage of vehicles. But you go to the smaller towns, even today the old taxi system works because the Uber system has to be economically viable. Similarly, the custom hiring is a good concept. It brings a lot of technologies, but making it economically viable is where probably, and if it improves, okay, with whatever ways, it will surely shift towards this rather than owning a lot of machines, because owning a machine for a marginal farmer is still very, very unviable. He may buy a small machine, say 5,000 rupees or something, but owning something like 2 lakh, 3 lakh is still would be a challenge. So I would say reaching, marketing, everything has improved because of digital connect, and the demand driver is more led by monsoon and maybe the crop pricing. These are two drivers. And in some states, you would see more demand because the labor has migrated. And the higher HP tractor that you questioned was more because the usage is changing. It is not because of COVID. It is because now they want to use the different machines which need a higher power. So a higher HP is more because of, like you say, Happy Seeder and all these machines which are now popular, and government is mandating a lot, and even farmers are finding it more economical in the long run. So higher HP is more because of usage, as I said, and probably this is my take on how things are, and future would in the long run be towards custom hiring, but viability of custom hiring centers is really a worry.
Thank you, Bimal. I think you touched upon 2-3 things. One, I think, yes, we cannot forget how important monsoon is for the farmer. Good monsoon, good sentiments, farmer has a feeling to buy, which is 101% right. Rightly said, COVID has changed the way we work. That is also true. Your point that small farmers, every small farmer can't buy an equipment is also well taken. See, we heard a different view when Tanil talked about, and he said that there is, and actually Tanil, you reflected Mr. Nikhil Nanda's view in the recent CII meet, where I had an opportunity to talk to him, and also he made a statement about how the farm sector is going to, he still believes that we are going to do well in this year and next year. Now, coming back to this question, yes, I appreciate that there has to be an Uber model or a workable Uber model, as you rightly said. Rotash may be able to add some more value. I'll come back to you next time after this round. Because what is important is something which is workable, is going to be beneficial for the renter and the rentee. Point noted, appreciated. And I also appreciate your point on physical presence. You know, how much can you do digitally? And I mean, there has to be a physical end to everything. Even when you look at an Amazon, a lot is digital, but the final transaction is physical. So that is where the life is going to be. still you are handling material, hardcore material, which has to be moved. Now let me come back finally to my good friend, he's actually giving a very nice smile, Grewal. Grewal, we've known him for a long time, so, and I know they're doing good. Kubota has been doing good in the past couple of years, and they have been bringing different technology. Not everything may not be small, but also technology which is different from what others have been offering. And you heard that digitally everything won't work. You need physicality also. What is your take on what has been happening in COVID? We discussed about go-to-market digitally. I'm not even going to talk to you on that. Everybody is trying to do it. Somebody do it better than others. What are the basic rural farm areas you think has changed and will remain changed? And what are the things which you think will go back to the old way of working? Grewal.
Thank you, Keshav sir. So I think I will go directly to the question. So I think COVID has been kind of a disruption. I think we all know it's a disruption. And any disruption brings about a change. Of course, a disruption is a bad word, but change is not such a bad word. And any change, there is always something good happening along with that change. And if we can learn probably those good things during that change, I think a lot of great things happen. So I think we heard people saying that now doing a meeting is very easy. We have digital platforms where we are able to meet across people at any point without any issues. So we learned very new ways of interacting with each other even as humans. And similarly, I think the rural landscape is also changing. So one reason, of course, is very evident, which is labor moving out. And the northern states, which were hugely dependent on labor, people have now learned to start using the agriculture implements or equipment themselves. So this basically, this kind of change has kind of the positive impacts of this changes. People also talking of new implements. I think you just heard about super seeder. I talk about paddy transplanters, even harvesters. Even we are now seeing the track type harvesters sales going up. So we are seeing now the agri mechanization is getting the kind of boost which was waiting for a long time. So that boost has come from this kind of a change scenario which we are seeing today. And of course, means marketing, of course, we had to change from physical to digital, but that's of course a small part of it. But I'm looking at the rural landscape definitely changing. And I always use the word ruralization. So after many, many years of urbanization, India has seen ruralization, where many of the urban youth have gone back to their villages. And that has brought in their kind of focus back onto agriculture. And definitely this brings in more investment or more kind of manpower into agriculture. And they started using more mechanization machines. And also, of course, Vimal said about the monsoon. Yes, a big driver. But other than that, the disposable incomes going up because farmers not spending on many other social events or those kind of things. And maybe their focus is coming back on agriculture. So I think this whole COVID thing, a disruption brought about a change, and fortunately for agriculture, this was a positive change. So in a way, the focus came back on agriculture, and when it comes back on agriculture, definitely brings back on agri mechanization. And so I think we are going to see a lot of new things happening, and even in tractor industry, I think probably you would be seeing recently a change moving towards the 4-wheel drive. So we are seeing that there is now a small move happening towards the 4-wheel drive segment, and probably the special application products will be coming up. So those kind of specific special application demands, I think, is going to come up. And also, I think people are going to be investing in new and new equipments. Means beyond the tractors. Of course, it's going to be many, many new equipments, and new machines are going to come in. So I think this has changed the rural landscape, and things are going to look brighter only as far as agri mechanization is concerned. That's how I look at it.
Thank you, Grewal. Thanks a lot. Just checking on time. Mamta, how much time we have left? 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
Sir, I will have to leave now.
Okay,
I had another
don't worry.
meeting at 3:30, so please pardon me.
Yeah, don't worry. I think we will. I think we may have 10 minutes. Yeah.
Yes, sir. 8 to 10 minutes, sir.
Good. Because I think the first round really took, everybody was interested in talking.
Yes.
And they had very valid points to talk to also. I'm going to take 2 or 3 points and ask every one of your views. Because I think for me, it's also close to my heart. Grewal actually talked about disruptive change. I genuinely believe disruptive change is good. Change is, you can't avoid a change. And disruptive change, you can't avoid at all. That's the reality of life. Then you also talked about the urbanization to ruralization, which you can work from anywhere in the situation. You don't have to be in center of the town to work. At least many of them who are actually onto the desk job. So that's going to change. It's also going to increase the money availability in the rural. This is why I genuinely believe it's a positive change. But what is actually worrying me is slightly different. That, see, we all talk about tractors. We talk about equipment. So unfortunately, a tractor does not do the job by itself. We need high end of implements and equipment, including tires. I know that there are very different tires today available in the world, which can do very different kinds of work. Now the question is, that's going to be the only question, why India has been always concentrated on tractors rather than high end of technology implement, which actually meets the soil. And another one which meets the soil is the tire. So what are the technology you think we need to develop? I'm not going to ask these questions to the power weeder chaps because they are already touching the ground. They are right onto the ground. But others who are basically tractor people. And definitely Rohtash will have to add something because a better implement or equipment will actually enables him to do a quicker and faster and more beneficial job. So gentlemen, coming back to quickly, I think we'll have only a minute each to answer. Mr. Satish from Apollo, do you think that India will start accepting the more technologically advanced tires, which is going to be important for better drop-out transmission, even on a smaller tire or smaller vehicle?
Yeah, definitely. Keshwan Saab, the technology in every product category is going up. So also it's going up in tires. The word disruptive change was used. In tires, the disruptive change is fundamentally going from bias to radial. That is the first fundamental change which happened. But also the word four-wheel drive was used. So unless the four-wheel drive doesn't happen, I don't see the radialization, because of the basic characteristic of the market being a value-driven market. But within the bias technology, the technology that we have and we are using today, there is a huge amount of upgradation with respect to soil types. So a tire which works in a soft soil in the northern markets doesn't work in the central market, doesn't work in the AP market, hard soil market. It's got a very different life and a very different kind of wear, etc. And now that you are having a lot of application-based farming, so the tires are being developed as per that application. So for row crops, for puddling, you need a specific kind of a design and a pattern and compound recipes. For slippage, for haulage, all these applications. So the opportunity is definitely there. How do we segment the market? What is the application that we are using? And I'm sure the tractor manufacturers are bringing in specialized products. And so also there is a complete segmentation as far as tire technology is concerned. I do believe technology is increasing. Cost of servicing, I think we did not touch this point in the COVID, the servicing aspect. One of the things that I find, since we do tires for all vehicle types, the way you service a car customer who would immediately go to a Twitter handle and start, if he's not, but a farmer, he could, one sort of puncture for a tractor tire can take away the entire day's productivity, and how do you service? So the servicing is also going through a lot of change, I see, in terms of the way We are beginning to accept digital formats of capturing the images of the tire, putting them into machine learning concepts so that we can give faster disposition of whether what we can do with this product, whether we would accept this claim or things like that. Uptime is a very strong concept, and how we can how we could do all of that. And finally, the sensor embedding inside the product. Somebody did speak about that. That's a reality which is going to happen soon rather than later. And we want to have all the data points and analyze all the data points and give it back in a cost-effective way to the machine so that the productivity and efficiency can improve. So, brief answer. I know we are short on time, so not.
Yeah. Thanks, Satish. I think it's interesting the way you said, yes, there are developments requirement, even on a tire. And I do appreciate the sensor embedding and how do you understand this data. I'm going to quickly move over to Satish, because Satish, you have not only been doing tractors, but you're also doing lot of implements. Now, do you find there is a need for better and better implements which actually gives benefits to the farmers so that every input the farmer puts actually reduces? Now, do you find any changes? Are you seeing high end of implements coming in?
Yes, sir. In a small tractor, we have widest range of implements. एक तरह से देखा जाए तो only tractor is power unit. So for that utilization, maximum utilization, implements are most important part of tractor. So right now, so many seeds are very costly, and so many crop are also very costly. So for that, we required this type of implements, means good technology, and many of operation in agriculture still we don't have any solution. So for that, we need very effectively and cost effective implements. Thank you.
Quickly going to now Grewal. Grewal, Kubota is very famous for implements and equipment. And are you trying to bring in high technology, especially seeing what has been happening to this COVID season and the future? And after you answer it, I'm going to go to Mr. Rohtash, because he bundles all this together into his offering. So after Grewal, I'm going to Rohtash. Maybe that'll be the last. Mantha is looking at me very seriously, so I'm just telling her.
Yeah.
Grewal,
So we are short of time. So let me talk about one thing which I have been kind of passionately following up, coming from north side. I think the paddy transplanters. So we have been kind of for the last 10 years been struggling with this segment, trying to bring a kind of new equipment which can take away the labor kind of issues which the farmers face. So we were, I think, many years have been struggling with this paddy transplanter thing. And fortunately, last season, when this all migration of labor happened, we could see finally the adoption of the technology happening. So what we've seen is definitely necessity is the mother of invention. So like that, when this kind of change has happened, which has also brought in focus on kind of new equipments. So paddy transplanter is one thing which we have really seen the overall scenario getting changed. And similarly, of course, we also have been marketing the track type harvesters for wetland paddy. So that also had been a smaller market comparatively to maybe the TOTs or the others. Even that means that scene is also changing now. We are seeing the demand also going up. So that's why I feel the rural landscape is seeing this kind of demand for newer equipments, and probably whatever we already had is now kind of succeeding in this market. And this kind of gives us encouragement to bring in kind of more such specialized equipment into this market. So yes, of course, means as things move, I think we'll be bringing in more technologies for the Indian farmers, definitely.
Thank you, Grewal. I'm going to go back to now Mr. Rohtash. I think maybe the last probably in this round, and I'll be mostly concluding. See, Rohtash is doing something very different, which is he's not selling an equipment. He's actually servicing the farmer. So Mr. Rohtash, there is tractor, there are implements, there is technology. What, in your opinion, the implement technology, the high end of implement technology, will it be helpful for your servicing? And what is that we have to do to get that kind of implements back into India?
Thanks, Kesavan. You can take a guy out of the tractor industry, but you can't take the tractor industry out of a guy. So I'm going to pull some observations before I reach your question, if you don't mind. I've been watching, and this is in the interest of everybody on this screen around this table. Financing for small machinery. Right now, the block that I have faced over the last few years is I've had to, even if I wanted to buy equipment that's advanced or otherwise, which was non-registrable, I had to do it either cash down or if it's a loan with 100% collateral. Now that's no point. It's almost as good as buying on cash. The question is you can't register. And there's some strange requirement. Then in this case, the non-registrability of that asset actually comes in the way of banks. This needs a policy shift. And I think the TMA should actually hit that very hard in order to make sure this happens. Second, the TMA itself forever, and I'm told it has changed a lot recently. It's more the Farm Machinery Association rather than the Tractor Manufacturers Association, which is a very, very welcome change because I think the interests of a very critical sector in mechanization called implements had been overtaken over the decades because of sales tax and excise duty and VAT and other issues that the tractor industry, and in any case, tractor industry was huge industry. They had the muscle. I was part of that industry. But I think there needs to be a role shift. The third thing that I think the Singhal spoke about, if I'm not wrong, GST, etc., etc. The purpose of GST, tractors are GST neutral. They're GST zero. It's nil or zero, depending on the legal definition of nil or zero. Fact is, the industry is not able to get credit for all that it buys. That needs to be neutralized first. So therefore, the industry should be asking for GST at a certain level, which helps it absorb the input GST. And this won't make it more. This will make it more affordable. This will increase your kitties to be able to bring down the cost of mechanization. Last point on costs. I don't know, but look at the figures that we have on exports. I was just watching the CRISIL report as this meeting was going on, and I find the numbers are still very, very small. We are bit players. And until we have a national level focus in the tractor industry of shaving metal, literally shaving metal a little more efficiently, in fact, exports may not be possible. So there is an imperative need to do that. Now, let me come to what you asked for. But before I do that, one or two more points. Workable Uber model has been talked about. I think, not only think, we know it's workable. We made it work. The point is, there is a natural tension in between an Uber and an automobile maker. What is that tension? And an automobile maker loves people like me who use their cars for 2% of its capacity, maybe 1% of the capacity of the car. And on Sunday, 0% of the capacity of the car, right? You love people like us. OE guys love us because we have this huge elephant standing there, which eats and we can afford to make it eat, but it's cool. So the taxi industry, right? The Uber industry, they have capacity utilization between 60 and 80%. And that means per day. The consumer loves this. Now the OE industry makes its money from low capacity utilization, selling more metal, and the service industry makes its money out of high utilization, the natural tension between these two businesses. If and only if the thinkers of this industry, whether they be from Mahindra, TAFE, Escorts, the institutions of tractors, Sonalika, John Deere, you guys come together to think deeply how to make a taxi business go. The taxi business is going to happen in any case, whether you guys like it or not. Sorry, I was part of you, but I'm on the other side of the table now. So it's going to happen. The OE business and the taxi business have to come together to make this happen, to create viability, to massify mechanization. Right now, you're massifying tractorization and massifying implementization. You're not massifying technologization. And it will overtake the OE industry until it starts thinking that way. That is my last point I wanted to sort of emphatically put across. Take your obsession with horsepowers and four-wheel drives, our obsession with horsepower. Why the devil do we need that? The obsession actually comes from, in the entire value chain from soil preparation to harvesting and beyond, this obsession comes from the first element called soil preparation. You don't need horsepowers to run sprayers. You don't need horsepowers for weedings and de-weedings. You don't need horsepower for seedings. So the entire focus of the implement industry, and I'm talking to the implement industry for one more sentence, the obsession is on moving earth, whereas the value creation is across the chain from earth moving or earth preparation to harvesting, right? I think we need to think differently about that. To your point, to what you asked for on implements, the implement industry is even more unsung than the tractor industry. Look at the size of these. In overseas markets or in other advanced economies, the size of the implement business is 4 to 5x that of the prime mover business, right? And clearly this is an underserved, undersung and unacknowledged industry. It needs to, and who are the best people to make it happen apart from the guys? The OEs themselves, right? We focused on engines and transmissions. It's time to focus out of engines and transmissions. This business is 5x that of the tractor business in the next 5 to 10 years. Go for it is my message. I in my role as a services business guy now, actually love some movements along in the industry along these lines.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I think that's an interesting view from the how you can convert it to a service, from the equipment to a serviceable thing like an Uber. See, I always seen one thing in my life that I intend to utilize an equipment and rent it out if I can do it at least 260 to 300 days a year. If I don't do this, I really do not utilize my sunk capital to the maximum and my charges becomes steep. So I think one of the things which I have to add back to what Mr. Rohitashmal said is, how do I use an equipment or implement or a tractor if I'm getting into this kind of a business? How do I ensure that I use it 260 to 300 days a year? And I know this is one of the areas, especially specialized implement, which has got just 2 seasons to work on. I know this is, I mean, it's not an answer to itself. It is only a question by itself. The answers has to come out. So I think we had an extremely interesting discussion from the varied points and varied thought processes. Rohitash slipping back into his mode of TMA, and Grewal talking about technology. And I think it has been pretty interesting to really add back and subtract, and interesting from when it comes to Satish telling that how the tires has so much of technology built in. I mean, people don't think that, tire is a tire is a tire. I mean, that's a problem with people. And that is something we need to really understand. So there is everywhere, everybody in this industry, from implements to tractors to everybody who is in touch with the soil can add value and help farmers. I think that is, I hope that is going to be our take home today. And let me hand it back to Mr. Mamta and Gupta ji, so that you can decide what to do with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, I take this opportunity to thank and pay our gratitude to our very distinguished moderator for this session, Sri T.R. Kesavan, our panel chair, President TMA, and all other eminent panelists for your worthy contributions in this session of CEO's Dialogue. Thank you very much indeed, everybody. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be signing off from this panel discussion session. And you all have been given another link for which you can log into for the second session, which is the policy interventions to promote agri-mechanization. And before we move on to the next session, we'll be playing a small promo video of Apollo Tyres. Thank you very much indeed, everybody. Once again, good afternoon and namaskar, and signing off from this link.
Thank you, sirs.
ना डरे तू बुलंद तू किसान, टूटे मिट्टी तेरे आगे, ले ले नई पहचान। कुदरत से लड़के भी जीते हो, कृषक बड़ा बलवान। कुदरत से लड़के भी
दमदार पकड़, परफॉर्मेंस और 3 साल की बिना शर्त वारंटी के साथ अपोलो कृषक गोल्ड। जमीन और किसान दोनों की किस्मत एक साथ जुड़ी होती है। जब जमीन सख्ती से पेश आए तो किसान को भी सख्त होना पड़ता है। इसीलिए आज के किसान को चाहिए एक ऐसा टायर जो उसकी तरह सख्त हो। अपोलो टायर्स पेश करते हैं विराट 23, देश का पहला और एकमात्र 23 गुड्डियों वाला टायर। इसकी 23 गुड्डियां दें सख्त जमीन पर सबसे मजबूत पकड़। सिर्फ यही नहीं, ज्यादा गुड्डियां मतलब तेज गति से काम, यानी डीजल की बचत। इसकी गुड्डियों को वैज्ञानिक तौर से डिजाइन किया गया है और गुड्डियों का अगला हिस्सा चौड़ा है जो टायर को दे एक समान घिसाई। इस तरह टायर को मिलती है 25% ज्यादा आयु, जिसकी वजह से ये एक सीजन ज्यादा चलता है। और तो और इसको मिले पंक्चर से बेहतरीन सुरक्षा, क्योंकि इसकी गुड्डियों के निचले हिस्से में है एक्स्ट्रा रबर। साथ में न्यू जनरेशन रबर की मजबूत केसिंग की वजह से मिले बार बार रिमोल्डिंग का मौका। और विराट 23 की शान बढ़ाए नया आकर्षक डिजाइन और बटरेस डिजाइन एवं गुड्डियों पर अनोखी ब्रांडिंग। इस तरह हर चुनौती का सामना करने में सक्षम हैं हमारे किसान और नया अपोलो विराट 23। विराट 23, 23 का वादा, सख्त जमीन पर चले ज्यादा।